Hello, hello, Babeliciouses! Welcome to Babes on the Brink. I am the most faithful of faithful, Annabel, and we are trying something new. We are going back to the top-rated non-English language speaking seasons of yesteryear, based on your recommendations. Thank you to Danielle for compiling some of those for us. And joining me is my other half, my bestie, Sarah from Crime Scene Pod. Sarah, welcome.
Sarah, also from Aussie Queens with my co-host Annabel.
It's true.
It's like a beautiful ball of love and podcasting.
Couldn't bring myself, I'm sorry, to do this year's Australia alone, but I managed to rope Sarah into Traitors Hungary. And what have you thought so far, Sarah?
I absolutely love it. It's gone straight to my top 3 and I've only watched half the season.
Yes, so we're going to be looking at Traitors Hungary Season 1. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the first half of the season, so episodes 1 to 6. Next time we catch up, we'll be looking at the second half of the season, and then we'll do a third episode. What were the contributions to the meta for people who didn't want to watch the full 12 eps, and frankly, now you've heard our take on it, you would be wild not to. What are the big takeaways?
Have you been enjoying it?
I am obsessed. Like, this is definitely one of my favorite seasons.
And I had this weird feeling when I was thinking, I'm just about to talk to, and I thought I was going to talk to the Hungarians, and I thought, I'm talking to Annabel, which is equally as exciting. But they are living rent-free in my head. It took all my spirit and all my strength. I had Ferry saying, it doesn't hurt, to stop at 6. It did hurt, but he's now my personal trainer, so perfect. And literally as soon as you hit stop, I'm hopping on to episode 7.
I don't think I could handle Ferry as my personal trainer with him screaming, "You weakling! I flush you down the toilet!"
I know, I flush weak people down the toilet. Gurgle, gurgle, Ferry, gurgle, gurgle.
I cannot overstate how insanely good this season is.
Absolutely
Favorite cast, without a shadow of the doubt. And we're going to talk about some of these big characters.
We'll get to it when we do our third episode about the meta, but we have never seen this. We have never seen episode 1, half the cast know who all the traitors are. And they're right. But how does it play out is what's so brilliant.
It's just amazing. So for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, I understand that probably, I'd say 80% of our listeners have not seen Traitors Hungary. That's fine. We're going to step you through it. But I wanted you to be able to take a look at some of these icons. So let's start with our host, Attila, Sarah.
Start with him. Absolutely, let's start with him. I mean, the charisma, the height, the depth, the breadth of Attila, and he is right in my top 3 of favourite hosts. Straight away, his arched eyebrow, his cruelty, his demeanour. I think he does what the really good Traitors hosts do, which is balance. This is me as a person, and this is me as the character of the Lord of the Castle.
Oh, completely. He is terrifying. Really, really rocks a tailored suit. The way the light bounces off his dyed hair, perfectly hairsprayed in place.
He's poofed. It's almost like he has a bumpet there at the front. I don't think he does, but I think there is a little backcombing going on.
Definitely a bit of backcombing. For those of you not watching the visual part of this pod, I would describe him as looking a little bit like the version of Alec Baldwin that fired the gun on purpose. You know,
yes,
this
totally.
man has evil Baldwin vibes, but in a hot way.
Yes. He has small child with magnifying glass held over an ant's nest, burning the ants with the power of the sun.
Honestly, that's how I would describe a lot of this cast. Like, this cast does not mince their words. They are creating an environment of psychological torture. We have one official quit and one half quit in this first 6 episodes.
Yes.
Even though they kind of mostly know each other in real life.
So, and one compelled quit as well. I mean, she had the option not to get murdered, but she chose to get murdered.
Yes. No, incredible. Also, actually, that's a good reminder. I always forget at the top of this, full spoiler warnings for every English speaking season of The Traitors. We assume if you're listening, you're either a super fan or you're the kind of fan that just doesn't care. So be warned, we are likely to reference other seasons, including maybe the first few episodes of Quebec. Have you been watching Quebec season 2 yet, Sarah?
I'm going to be covering it with Sam Smith. We covered season 1 when we had no access to English subtitles. So we called our show What Did They Francais? As we tried to decipher what happened, which I think we did fairly successfully. We are going to be covering it, but I haven't started it yet because I have been plunged in Hungary. I have been plungery.
I've been quite the demanding co-host for you, Sarah,
Love it.
but
Love it.
no regrets. I'm getting my Hungary on, and actually that is another, one day, team, I'll get better at this. That's another housekeeping note. If you want to follow along with us and you don't know where you can watch these seasons with subtitles, go to Reddit, to the Traitors Archive. There we have the wonderful Traitors Archivist who dedicatedly uploads all of the international seasons of the Traitors with subtitles. I will note here, these subtitles that we're watching were originally generated with AI and have been fact-checked by someone who speaks Hungarian. That said, there may be some incorrect translations there, so don't hold it against us if you are one of the contestants listening, imagine.
Hello?
And we slightly misinterpret something you said.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there are a few of the things that are intriguing is the different nomenclature. For example, this show is called The Traitors Murder in the Castle. I thought,
yes!
Brilliant. I love that. Absolutely
I love that. And they call the faithful innocents.
Innocent, which I really like. I am innocent. The innocents, the traitors. They are sometimes called the victims as well. Brilliant. And they call the missions trials, which I sort of like.
So good.
If you have Ferry shouting at you that he's going to flush you down the toilet, that is a big trial.
Honestly, living with Ferry, you're so right. Imagine being married to Ferry.
Well, separate houses, potentially separate cities, separate country, separate continents. I think I'd be okay. It probably makes a lot of money. It makes a lot of foreigns.
If I had an army of bodyguards and maybe some very vicious dogs, I'd definitely have to upgrade from a toy poodle if I'm going to be hanging out with Ferry.
Married to Ferry, yes. We love you, Ferry, but you are scary, Ferry.
You are very scary, Ferry. But we do have one person who I believe I would back to fully protect any of us from Ferry, or frankly anyone. I've slid into her DMs straight away. I am happy to hand my title of the most faithful of all time, the greatest faithful to ever do it. I would like to introduce the world to Aniko, because Aniko is a goddess, Sarah.
She is incroyable, as they would say in Quebec.
She is. Again, mind-blowing. She's basically invisible to us in episode 1, but by the time we start getting to the first round table in episode 2, Aniko has already clocked 2 out of 3 of the traitors, and by the start of episode 3, she's clocked them all. She goes full Annabel at the round table in either episode 3 or 4, where she spells out exactly how she's worked out who all of the traitors are, and unlike me, she has the friends to back it up. And I want to talk a bit as we get through it in Aniko's game. Aniko finesses this. She not only has an incredible read on the people around her, an incredible read on how to play the game. She just executes it so well, and I would die for this woman, Sarah.
She did remind me of you immediately, and interesting that you say the difference is only that she has an army. And you had a platoon, perhaps. Certainly not the army that she has. I mean, there's going to be an episode that at breakfast they find that 4 people are gone. One of them banished, they knew about it, and 3 others are gone, and she figures it out. She figures out, because Attila certainly is not going to tell them, she figures out exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. You go, who are you?
She is a genius.
Anniko,
And it's not just that she has an army.
Come
I
on
want
the
to.
show. Come on the
She
show.
has many other things that are much better than me. Her strategy of kind of playing under the radar at the start, I want to talk about, is incredible. She's just a genius. Like, I just cannot get over how amazing this woman is. I did beg her to come on the podcast. Unfortunately, English, not a strong language for Anniko, and that I respect because, frankly, I speak 2 words of Hungarian. I've worked out Igen means yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Forint
Kessenem is thank
dollar.
you, and forint is money. So
Yes,
Anniko,
exactly.
absolutely incredible. Love her.
Yes.
I also want to talk about my crush pick. One of our first traitors here off the bat, and that is Jolt. Now, fact check me here, Sarah. Is Jolt actually incredibly sexy in an evil way? Or is this just my infamous hankering for someone slightly homicidal?
I think he is Jerry Seinfeld's two-faced girlfriend. In some scenes, he's really gorgeous, and in other scenes, he's not. Now, he has a black eye for quite he arrives with a black eye, so I think maybe something on a film happened to him. I don't know. But come on, makeup artists on The Traitors, Murder in the Castle, Hungary 1, cover up that black eye. It's so interesting how, because there are quite a few actors like I was going to say straight actors, but you know what I mean, exclusively actors on the show. And it's not till they're about to ditch Svolt that one of the young actors is shaking because of how influenced he was by him, how important he is to him. He can barely bear to write his name down. And I thought that's really interesting because I liked him a lot. His thoughts are a little scattered. He looks like he would have a sharper mind, but he just didn't play as well as he could have. Perhaps he's not an improv actor, but you think he's going to be really smart. And then you go, oh, Jolt, you did make some mistakes. But I can see why you're attracted to him. He's not my show crush, but I'm picking up the vibe.
Jolt, yeah, so we should have added, this is an all-celebrity cast. So they're either public figures or they are influencers. Jolt seems to be a very influential Hungarian actor from what we can tell. You know, off the bat, before even the people are selected, everyone's like, Jolt, he would be a good traitor because he just looks like bad news.
He does.
Or she describes him as having a murderous face.
Yes, he does, yes.
But that said, he has a lot of really close friends. You know, he's really close with the older bros like Ferry. Some of the women really trust him as well. He has a kind of tight group of people who ride or die with him. I think that it seems like, looks aside, he's actually quite a lovely person with a strong sense of justice. And I wonder if being in this castle with a bunch of people he knows in real life, having to lie to them, having to betray him, if that weighs on him, because it does seem to weigh on some of the other traitors.
He might have had a better time. He doesn't have a bad time, but he might have had a better time as an innocent. But as you say, he has sway over a group. And in fact, we're going to see a house divided exactly down the middle. And some people decrying the herd mentality, all of them saying we mustn't divide into 2 tribes, but they do. And it's really fascinating.
Did you have who were your other standouts from this cast? I've given you some of mine.
Well, I love Orshi. She is fantastic. She is someone who is able to change her mind. She has very strongly held thoughts, which she is not shy about giving at the round table and at other discussions. But she has also now twice in 6 episodes said, I can't ignore this thought that came into my head, and then it sat there for a while, and then I looked in his eyes, and then I knew. So she's made 2 very strong 180-degree turns, and she was right on both of them. So I find that very interesting. She's not afraid to say, yes, I have been right or die. One of them was for Jolt. I have been right or die, and then I just suddenly knew that I was wrong. and I'm wrong and I voted for him, which I just love that. What do you think about Orshi?
I really like Orshi as well. It took me a while to warm to her. She wasn't a strong presence in the first few episodes. And then she has this kind of tense moment with Aniko where during a trial, Aniko reveals that she doesn't really like Orshi. And Orshi, who apparently knows Aniko in real life, Aniko calls her on the phone quite a lot, is really quite hurt and heartbroken by this. And then we start to get the coming out story of Orshi, and we see her be absolutely critical to the Jolt vote. And she's really becoming more of a character as we get to the midpoint of this season.
Yes, I mean, Aniko said Orshi because she thought Orshi would understand that it wasn't true. But I think it's hard to hear your name being called. One of my other favourites is Bense. Bense is a fine figure of a man. I think he has gone to the Attila school of hairdressing. There he is with his lacquered hair. He was slightly background, but my eye was always drawn to him. I think he's an actor as well. Is he? Just let me look at my little list.
Yes, Benser is an actor. He's a bit fabulous. Mm-hmm. He comes in with a few pre-game relationships as well. He bonds right off the bat with traitor Lutzer, and also Thomas with the hair Moha. But Bence, he's got a bit of he looks like he would be a vampire in True Blood or one of these like very sexy vampire shows.
He gives me Colin from New Zealand season 1 vibes.
Yes.
And then from sort of being in the background, being there, not much to say, he gets recruited and it's like, bam, Bensei in his full form. He arises, he slays, he chooses, so often recruited traitors, or towards the end, as our listeners know, traitors will select another traitor to seduce that they will throw to the wolves. Bense is looking for a partner in crime that can help him get to the end. And this is where I think his brain is wonderful for this game. And it was, I won't say it was totally unexpected because he didn't look like he was dumb, but he didn't look like he was going to be instrumental to the season. And it's like a light switched on and we went, oh, like a vampire, I suppose. You were there all the time. I looked in the mirror, I saw nothing. I turned around and you were standing behind me. That kind of idea.
Yeah. Look, he stood out to me from the beginning, not just because he's very good looking, but also very good looking. I mean, this whole cast is very good looking. White as white toast. Like, if the only diversity here is a little bit of tension between the guys with blonde hair and the guys with brown hair. Mm-hmm. But and also shout out to the fact this is an all celebrity cast, and yet they are all here to play the game. They're playing the game really well. Yes. They're a compelling cast. Like, when you contrast this to what the US is doing, it's incredible. It's incredible.
I will watch the US, of course, because any traitors is good traitors. But in my mind, I sort of sequester off US traitors as a different show, because certainly the last season, and to my mind the one before, people were not there to play the traitors. They were there to have time on television as reality TV stars, because it must be said they're not just celebrities. They are from reality television, and that's what makes them stand apart. Because New Zealand One was also celebrities.
Yes, and I think there's some parallels between this season of Hungary and New Zealand One, certainly in the way that having these pre-existing relationships and knowing each other comes to play a big factor in terms of who you work with, recognizing changes in behavior, so making it easier to identify traitors. I know in New Zealand One, they were very quick to identify traitors as well, so I think that plays into it. Back to Benser, he right from the get-go, he had a lot of relationships. A lot of people were close with him, but he was more quiet and under the radar. So you have these big personalities like Jolt, like Andras Schwabi, who were running around and kind of making their alpha male presence known. That was never Bent's. He was more under the radar. He's part of, this really clever alliance with Aniko. They were a little bit on the out with it. And it makes it much easier once he transitions into the traitor role. First of all, he's just not as famous as some of the other actors. But also he's been playing this more under the radar, quiet, intelligent game as well. So I'm really impressed by him too.
Yes, and he was firmly on the innocent side.
Yes. I want to talk about my ironic hero for a moment of this season, and that is my king, Andre. I love Andre so much.
Can I just pause to say the amount of wonderful face furniture in particular moustaches that are on display in this season? If you like a moustache, dear listener, you can do no better than to go and watch The Traitors, Murder in the Castle, Hungary 1, for the moustaches alone. And Andre, the musician, his is really one of the top moustaches.
I would die for this man as well. So Andre, look, not confirmed gay, because these people are living in Hungary, which is becoming an increasingly hostile place for the LGBTQI community. But I think given his Instagram, and I have done a deep dive, and just given the man in general,
Of course you have.
It's safe to say this is our token homosexual. And for those of you, again, not watching on YouTube, he has the most epic hairpiece. It is a truly incredible hairpiece perched on the top of his head. These sort of penciled in thin eyebrows and this amazing little mustache. And Andre is there. He is there to wear hideous satin leopard print shirts. He is furniture. He doesn't really contribute. He's not really a part of any alliance. But the older women in the house love him, and I stan him so hard. He's one of my favorites.
Yes. If we didn't know that he was a celebrity, if we didn't know he was a musician, he is what our grandmothers thought a hairdresser should look like.
He's a male soprano, to be precise. Okay. And he's already freaking out in the first episode that he heard someone bitching about him, and basically doesn't talk again after that.
I do the bitching.
Snaps for our King Andre. In terms of other sort of notable people, we've got Henry, who, again, not a notable character, but only notable in the fact he looks the spitting image of Jeffrey Daimler.
I know.
Crime Scene Pod shout out.
Yes, I immediately texted you and I said, Henry the serial killer. He is Attila is a tall man and Henry stands over him. And in fact, when Attila holds up Henry's photo at breakfast to say he's been murdered, he then raises his arm to put the photo like half a foot above his head. He's in a yellow mock turtleneck. And he has blonde hair and he has the Dharma glasses. I think, Henry, if you look as you do, I sort of love you leaning into it. And lean you do, because you've got to stoop down to hear anybody speak.
He's incredible. Andras Schwabi describes him as having a psychopath face.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think there's just a little bit of tension. So Henry is one of two blonde men here, which seems to, look, the diversity, what can we say, of hair colours in this season. We even have a redhead. But being one of the blondes seems to really put off one of our other men notable for our hair, and that is Moha. Tommy Moha.
We love Tony.
He is great, and he is majorly beefing with the two blondes for some reason, unclear. There's a lot going on with Moha's hair.
I think. To me, he seems very young.
He acts very young. Mm-hmm. He acts very young. He's got big, a lot of stuff going on with his hair, and he's always got a sideways cap on, or as pictured here, ming goggles perched to the side on his
Sideways.
beanie, and
Brilliant.
he's often wearing sort of gaudy ski jackets. I don't know that he is that young, Sarah. He acts like
Okay.
he's 22, but just judging on the progression of his face, I would place this
Right.
man at about 35, 36.
Well, I thought he was young and he was acting young, and then he is the one that is very upset to vote for Jolt and says
Yeah.
that as a young boy he looked at Jolt and Jolt was his hero and inspiration. So that also makes me feel that he's a
It's
little younger.
true. Maybe he was just a heavy smoker. I will.
Oh, quite. I mean, Hungary, they love smoking.
They do love smoking. All right. Well, we can come back to some of the. Unless there's anybody else who you would like to call out at this point, we can come back to some of my cast photos. Yes.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure we're going to speak about her, so we won't now. But Lutzer, there are two Lutzers.
Oh,
And Lutzer, the traitor, is adore.
she is so
The worst
sweet.
traitor, potentially the worst traitor in the history of traitors, but absolutely adore.
Absolutely terrible, and described as being an innocent little schoolgirl by someone. That was a little bit of
yes.
an icky moment, but she does look very innocent and cute. I'll give people that.
She's a
So-
content creator, so I'd love to see what sort of content she makes. We're hampered by the content creators in that we can't understand their posts.
No. All right, well, let's get into it. Everyone meets each other on the trains, and so there are some pre-existing relationships, and there is a little bit of already heat on the idea, well, wouldn't actors make brilliant traitors? But we start the game once we get to the castle with a little icebreaker. So there are boards put up around the garden, and everyone has to stand below a board with one of these phrases. And these phrases range from, quite what I would say are incriminating things, such as, I lie easily, I am the smartest person here, I'm absolutely going to win this game, all the way through to slightly more self-effacing things like I am naive, or I am probably going to be first boot. Notable to me, straight off the bat, was that the women mostly chose the self-effacing ones, and I thought, oh, this is good, because, saying I'm the smartest and best person here could only be a bad thing. But, Sarah, it's the traitors, and Attila has a twist.
Of course. And, I mean, this is 2023, so they may never have seen a season. I mean, seasons were available, but again, were they subtitled in Hungarian, and were they available? So I don't know the exact filming dates, but it seems like that might have been filming at the same time. So, yeah, interesting. However, it's a game. It's not going to just be an icebreaker. The game has started. The game started on the train, everybody. And so to put yourself underneath this sign that says, I will be the first one out, not only leave aside the game, you're signaling to the other players who can say, oh, okay, well, look, you thought you were going to be first out, so that's almost permission to vote you out first. But they don't need to.
That said, I was a little bit upset. So red-haired Lutzer, the writer, shocked to be entering the room and not being the loudest there. Feel you, girly. Total cutie. She is the person who stands below, I'm going to be the first one out. And Attila says, well, if that's your attitude, why are you even here? Lutzer, get out of here. And Lutzer is booted.
Brilliant.
Look, I was really sad because I thought, oh no, what if she doesn't come back? But then me, who's watched all these seasons, I'm like, they always come back,
Yeah, we knew she was
Annabelle.
coming back, because
They
you
always
can
come
only
back.
leave by being banished or being murdered. And also a secret
Or-
third thing, which is quitting.
A secret third thing, which is quitting. Yeah.
Yes,
So yes, that was still. I get emotional every time.
of course.
We do the traitor selection here. So let's talk about our traitors. We've already talked a bit about Jolt and how maybe that was a bit on the nose. But we also have Lutzer, the content creator. She becomes a bit sketched out and withdrawn immediately after the selection, Sarah.
Yes. Now, she tries to pass it off as she is a nervous person. It's the stress of playing the game. which is a good explanation, but it seems to me that she is hamstrung by being selected as a traitor. I think she was good for the production to choose, but I think it shut her down more. I think if she'd been an innocent, she could have floated. She could have gone under Ferry's wing, perhaps. She could have been called Little Girl by many of the men, and she could have decided not to revolt against that. She could have found her way, I think, as an innocent. I think it's very interesting that people say, oh, now the game has started. And you go, well, no, the game already started. But I think for her, the game started too soon. She thought somehow, had an idea that she would be able to acclimatise, she would be able to meet people, she would be able to get the lie of the land. But being a traitor, look, everybody has to play straight away, but being a traitor, she knew she had to play straight away. And I think that sort of halted her somewhat in her tracks. What do you think?
I agree. She wanted to be a traitor, unlike our third traitor. But I got the impression that she was already young. She was young, perhaps not as well known, and not as big of a personality as some of the people there. And this castle is characterized by a lot of big, dare I say, aggressive personalities.
You dare.
And if someone thinks you are a traitor, they are going to come at you. They are there for blood. They are there for your throat. So I just think that her youth, her personality, and maybe not being emotionally prepared for the huge weight that was going to come with being a traitor, she just immediately crumbled.
Yes, which was a shame, because I think she would have had fun as an innocent.
And
although
she seemed quite close.
Potentially murdered quite early, because she would have been, one of those 100%, 100% innocents that the traitors do love to murder.
That is true as well. And she's close with Ben Sir, so at least she had that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about our third traitor? Our third traitor is Zita. I have got a photo of her because I could swear I have seen this woman in an advert before. She is a model. She is the most exquisitely beautiful person you've ever seen in your life.
Those cheekbones.
I searched for her online and I couldn't see any of the work she had done that I would recognize her from, but she looked astonishingly familiar to me. So.
Yes, and because she's very attractive, I fell under her spell and I found it hard to critique her. However, I don't know that she played as a traitor well either. Now, listeners, it may sound like we are critiquing all the traitors, and we are, but they don't have the history of the seasons that anybody playing now has. And they may not necessarily be game players. Like, everybody is playing the game, yes, but their main job is a celebrity, so that might be on them as well, like what their public face would be. If you have watched Got to Get Out, no celebrities. No celebrities? Yes, celebrities. What am I talking about? But someone who is rather awful to someone is asked if they feel sorry for it, and they say no, but I'm worried about what the audience thinks. And I thought, yeah, exactly. I mean, what he does is unforgivable. But whether that's front of mind or not, I think it has to occur to people who do make their money in the public sphere. And having said that, I just expected her to play better, or to be more, not necessarily under the radar, but perhaps present herself as super innocent. Yes, align with Arniko, and that side of the house, let's say.
Ben Sir, when recruited, will go on to say the original traitors, there's no point having any more of them here. They weren't good. They weren't good, and it's not good for the traitors. I don't think these were three players who were strong at being a traitor. They were great television.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Credit to Zita. Zita straight up said to Attila, I don't want to be a traitor. So I question why you would recruit someone at the start to be a traitor if they don't want to do it. It's something that you really need to have prepared yourself for.
Mm-hmm. And as we see with Lutzer, she wanted to be a traitor and it was still difficult. So
yes.
Yeah.
And Zeta goes on to quit, which I think is a bit disappointing. Though I did enjoy her and her time there. I thought that but that said, is straight after the selection, Mohai and Dani already clock her. So she's getting straight from the beginning. I'll tell you what, I was surprised and disappointed Vanda wasn't selected in her place as the traitor.
We didn't mention Vanda. She is fabulous. I love her. Just going back to Zeta's quit, which is going to come up. Rather than quit, could she not have said, go to the conclave, say to Jolt, I don't want to be here anymore. So what I want you to do tomorrow is start saying my name, and then I want you to go to the round table and openly attack me, and I will badly defend myself. I will then stand on the circle of truth and say that I'm a traitor, and this now cloaks you in the traitor hunter cloak. So those that thought you were a traitor might go, oh, hold on, he really went for Zeta. Now that I know that would be hard, but it would seem more. And I think what happened with the three of them is I never felt they were a team. Whereas when Bensa recruits Dani, it seems like, boom, partnership. They're discussing, they're there, they're together, they're on the same wavelength. So I think that it's not that you need a leader, and we certainly don't want a, Boston Rob, bulldoze leader, but I don't know, it seemed a little, the conclave seemed a little spongy. Very disappointed that she quit. While I understand it, very disappointing.
I mean, I think it just, at that round table where she's getting torn to shreds by Aniko, it was too much for her. She didn't want to stick around another day and be torn to shreds again. She hit breaking point and said, I want a mental health evacuation here. She called it. And while obviously we here support everyone making the right decisions for their mental health.
Absolutely.
And these traitors are in a particularly volatile castle.
With that particular cast,
with this particular cast, in this particular environment, I have a lot of sympathy for her. It was just not amazing for everybody else left in the game who have to try and game around a traitor quitting. And the game, on one hand, the host can't say, yeah, Zeta was a traitor, she quit, because that has too much impact on the game. But they also can't not say anything or not do anything. It was it left things in a bit of a lurch.
Yeah, it was called a medical evacuation. And then there are two other people missing. Now, one other person, you could think, okay, Zeta was medically evacuated and the other person was murdered. But with two missing and the heat on Zeta from the night before, where she only was saved by one vote, Aniko in particular, but others can quickly see Zeta was a traitor. One person was blackmailed and refused and therefore died. Someone else has been blackmailed and accepted, and they've gone on to murder the fourth person.
Yes, so that happens in, I believe, episode 3 or 4. Vanda, for a moment, though. Vanda is really fun. She is just an ice queen. She is mother. She was only here to be a traitor, she tells us. The only person who seems completely unbothered by red-haired Lutzer's shock exit at the start, and confronts little girl Lutzer publicly immediately after the selection. Vanda, I think she could have hacked it. She could have hacked it as a traitor, and we were robbed of that. So we have our little trial. I like that the trials here have a fun murder mystery vibe, but we can circle back on that later. The night wraps up for the faithful with Andras Schwabi and yes, and
sorry,
Jolt.
I was just repeating it. I wasn't correcting you. They're fun. They're just fun names to say. Everybody, try it.
Schwabi and Jolt. Mm-hmm. Go around to the groups of people hanging out around the castle.
And that Jolt allowed himself to be complicit in it. Huge mistake.
Very weird. They go around to each group of people playing a very weird game where they get people to say, all at the same time with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, if they think there is a traitor at the table with them, and then try and do some weird numbers deduction from that. But it brings a lot of attention to them, Sarah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they're both going to pay for it. One immediately
sure are.
and one on a delay. Yes. Yeah. Very bad play
Anyway,
by both innocent and traitor.
terrible move. Do not
Don't
do
do
not
it.
recommend this as a
Don't do it.
move.
First night.
But
Night
this is
one.
what we
What are
mean
you doing?
with the alpha bros bringing a lot of attention to
I know.
themselves.
I mean, brilliant television. We loved it.
We get to the conclave. Lutzer, Zeta, and Jolt all very happy to see each other, but Jolt has already gone around and been telling people he's suspicious of Zeta. Zeta has heard his name. Everyone's heard Lutzer's name. All three of them are already on the back foot, and we've not even had 24 hours in the game yet. And Jolt suggests, well, why don't we murder my best mate, Idris Schwabi? We've just gone around and played this game. Plus, Schwabi has been telling everyone that he is suspicious of Orshi, so it's totally going to frame Orshi. And everyone's like, snaps. Brilliant idea.
Brilliant.
Unfortunately, Sarah, it was not such a brilliant idea.
They should have left him in the game to draw attention onto himself at every opportunity, because he had no idea who the traitors were.
He really didn't.
And did you notice that the episode ends with zombie, which I love?
Yes! Again, soundtrack immaculate.
Soundtrack immaculate.
Almost as immaculate as the satin snakeskin button-up Andre is going to wear coming into breakfast in the morning. And Jolt.
The fashion police were out over the whole 6 episodes and will continue to have their eyes on them for the following 6. The outfits, I would say costumes, but I think this is that's just what they wear.
I think so.
Just what they wear.
I think so. Anyway, at breakfast, Jolt has a premonition. He's like, I just think Schwabi is a traitor. He's my top pick, but oh no, Jolt clearly can't be a traitor because Schwabi's been murdered. And gone too soon.
Oh, this chick in the book.
Absolutely. So everyone's like, well, Jolt, he must be innocent because he was close with Schwabi. And Jolt's like, yes. And Schwabi was saying Orshi. The typical move of getting your best friend out first to clear you. Sometimes it works, often it doesn't. And Aniko, incredible, episode 2, she says it's Zeta and it's Jolt. And she shares this with Dani and, now, let me not mispronounce this because it's like Schwabi but not, Zobby. Zobby, I don't have a photo of him, but he is an older gentleman with a grey top knot, Sarah.
Yes, yes.
So she forms a little, she's sure. Now, however, so Dani and Sorby and Aniko, they have a little trio. And this is something I think that Aniko manages to pull off really well, even if it rubs some people the wrong way. So one of the things she did that I thought was really cool that I didn't is really keep her numbers buttoned up. So sharing her elaborate plan and her ideas with another group of highly intelligent people and not letting those names leak. And while I do think, you have nothing to hide if you're a faithful, you want people to know if you have clocked a traitor because it, keeps you safe from murder in some ways. In other ways, this is how she manages to survive so long because no one knows she's the leader. No one knows that it's Aniko who's putting all of these blocks together and getting the answers. Old mate Zobby, he's the one who takes the fall by being the biggest alpha bro. So I do think in that sense it was really, really great. What did you think about this, Sarah?
Well, I just can't say enough about Aniko. I hadn't thought about that idea because we see her putting the blocks together, because we see her putting the ideas together, because we see her so firmly stand in her truth. One has to say, well, if you're not in that group or if you're not on that side of the house, who do you think is in charge? Yeah, that's intriguing. I think on reflection, I think you're right. Also, she would have been, even if you had figured it out as a traitor, she would have been so dangerous to take out because the 3 names she's saying are the three of you.
Absolutely.
I suppose you could do well, if I was a traitor, I wouldn't have killed her. But, everyone sees through that as well.
She needed to go, and it does. I mean, don't get me wrong. The other faithful are really annoyed that the three won't let them come join the conversation. So it does bring heat on the group.
Oh, that threesome, when somebody comes to the door, do not send them away. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah, they have a secret conclave of their own, and when people approach, they say, no, go away. What you say when you're having a secret conclave and somebody you don't want arrives is you say, Annabel, quick, come, just the person we want to talk to.
Yeah, totally. So they do misplay that, and then you don't have to share your genuine ideas. I understand wanting to be able to finish that conversation and share those
Finish it another time. Finish it
but do it another time. You're completely right. So meanwhile, Traitor Lutzer is spiraling. And things are getting messy. We have contrasting faithful strategies here. We have Thomas. Have I shown a photo? We haven't had a little chat about
Let's have a look at Blondie.
At Blondie. So I had a lot of love for Blondie. This is one of our blonde guys. Let me just get to him here. Thomas looks a lot like this British gay Sims 4 YouTuber that I have watched a few of the videos of, but Thomas is a heterosexual man with a wife and children.
And another marvellous moustache.
Another marvellous moustache, and I actually loved him. He gets banished in the final episode that we watched this week, episode 6, and gives a really, I thought, moving confessional. He says, look, everyone is different. And Ferry, who has basically just been told Thomas he's a big, weak loser who needs to be flushed down the toilet.
Sissy. Told him he's a sissy.
Yes.
Not a man.
He's like, Ferry might embody strong masculinity, but I don't. And I'm not going to change because, you know what, I'm loved for who I am at home. And
oh, I know, I nearly cried.
I loved it.
Yes.
He did have the most outrageous cat fight, which ends up being his downfall. But at this stage, Thomas's strategy is, I have my opinions. I am not going to be influenced by my opinions. This is what I believed happened, and I'm sticking with my gut. We can contrast this with people like serial killer Henry, who's like, no, I want to be open to what everybody else has to say. Anyway.
I like Thomas a lot, and he talked about it feeling like high school, and so you understood that he mightn't have had the easiest time at high school. And I love that thing about I'm loved at home. So this is the half quit that you were referring to. He sees the writing on the wall. He speaks, but he doesn't. He speaks in his own defense, but he doesn't fight to stay.
There's really, and this comes to a head in episode 3, I think, or 4. We're nearly there. The house becomes very split in two. Mm-hmm. There are the Arnico numbers who have basically worked out exactly what's happening with the game and are fighting hard to get rid of the traitors who are there. And then you have the...
Although Arnico is very keen on identifying the traitors, but not so much in getting rid of the traitors. And here,
a traitor in
you
particular
are of one opinion. So when it gets down to Jolt, she does not want to get rid of him because then you go completely back into the unknown. And this was something you certainly played with.
Yes. I don't want to skip there too far. I want to just say at this point, no, that's fine. At this point, we've got Arnico and her warriors, and then we have these very loyal innocents who are very loyal to Jolt and Zeta. And those numbers, even though they have all the traitors on their side, keep having their numbers taken away. And that escalates once you get Benser and Dani up in the traitors' tower. But Thomas is kind of isolated with no friends by the end of his time. And I think that leads to breaking point. Anyway, going into our first roundtable, it's basically a massive pile-on Lutzer. Everyone is going in on Lutzer. Jolt kind of fights back and says, this is herd mentality. We can't just be going with whatever everybody else thinks. You need to be voting with what you believe. And just because one person says it's Lutzer, that doesn't mean that, it's that compelling. Vanda, what did you think about this? She says, I'm scared to write down who my main suspect is, expose myself, and then get murdered tonight. Zeta, I thought, gave her very helpful advice that she maybe shouldn't give as a traitor and says, well, actually, if you wrote down a correct traitor, it would protect you because it would make it too obvious to murder you.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter because it's a yeah.
I think Vanda is okay to have the thought, but I question her expressing it like that. I certainly think not, somebody speaking against herd mentality. I'm always very happy for that. We saw that in New Zealand 1, and that was, cheers to that. However, voting with the House, especially when the House is right, is not a bad move either. And here they are going to equal. Spoiler for New Zealand 1. New Zealand 1 voted out a traitor in the first round table. And Sam Smith, my co-host and person who played in that season, always is very nervous at the first round table of any new season, hoping that there won't be a vote out of a traitor because he wants his season to be the only ones. So I did message him a 4-letter word, which was boom.
Sorry, Sam.
Sorry, Sam.
Everybody votes for Lutzer, Traitor Lutzer here, except for, damningly, Jolt, who says, I don't like everyone piling on a child. But Lutzer... Lutzer doesn't like this.
Does not. But also, if you think it's right, then why wouldn't you vote? And you are all right,
Obviously, Lutzer doesn't vote for herself. Tomasz votes for what becomes his arch nemesis, Evelyn, over a conversation he had with her she claims she doesn't remember. And Ferry votes for somebody else as well.
Because Ferry doesn't know what's going on.
Ferry has no idea what's going on.
It's going to become in the day following that that the other traitors didn't vote for Lutzer. Now, Zeta does vote for Lutzer, and in fact, we have Lutzer giving her permission to do so in the scramble before the round table.
They clock this, and I think even Anniko says, I bet one voted for her and one didn't.
She's so
probably because she already knows it's Zeta and Jolt at that point. But this really is a death knell for Jolt. He gives some fantastic confessionals. In this one, he says, I feel like I'm a fox retreating into my den, waiting to be attacked by dogs. Very colourful. And so now we have this house split between, as a traitor, do you vote out another traitor if that's where the votes are going anyway? So Jolt's side of the house, Layla, Dr. Layla says, yes, no, of course they would have all voted for, Lutzer, but Sorby and their side of the house say, no. And damningly, they reveal to us, Anniko and Sorby, what Jolt didn't know was that Shabi, not Sorby, Andras Shabi, had actually shared with them, I think the traitors are Orshi and Zeta. So now they are certain. It is Zeta, it is Jolt. They trust Danny, and they're scared of it leaking and getting murdered. But then they're also like, maybe we need to share this theory because then otherwise we're not going to have to get enough numbers. I'm just so impressed by them.
They catch Jolt in a lie because they ask him, did Svarby tell you who he thought were traitors? And he says, yes, he did. He said Orshi. Now, they know that he said Orshi and Zeta. And so this is why they are 100% that it's Zeta. They know Zeta voted for Lutzer, and that follows in Anniko's idea that one did vote and one didn't vote, or indeed both voted. So Jolt, confirmed traitor. Zeta, by association, confirmed traitor. And when they bring that up to Jolt in the episodes to come, he will say, no. Svarby said Orshi. I said Zeta. No, too late.
Oh, Jolt does get a little caught up in his own lies. And up in the conclave with Zeta, they're told you can recruit here if you want to, but they say, no, we're going to murder, and they decide to kill Mother Vanda. They want to break up her alliance with serial killer Henry, who was particularly loud at the round table, and she was cagey. What did we think about this decision?
Well, they keep saying, oh, let's murder someone to create chaos. And while that's not in general, yes, it's not a bad thing to do. This was the murder to get rid of Arnico.
I don't think they realise. I mean, I agree if they had all the information, but as we kind of see in this episode about to come, they don't realise Arnico is the brains behind the operation.
But even so, she's a strong voice. She is charismatic. You can see people forming around her. So even if you don't know that she knows your name, and in fact, even more so, I think Arnico is a better choice, because they keep in every conclave saying, what were the innocents? What doesn't make sense? Okay, let's do the thing that doesn't make sense. It's like, no. I mean, we saw Boston Rob directly murder anybody that dared to say his name, and then the next day front the rest of them with, well, I mean, it's obviously not me, because why would everybody that says my name keep getting killed? I mean, that doesn't last as long as he hoped it would. But this is something that can be said, or you can slide over. So I think Arnico, or one of the stronger voices, one of the organising voices, would have been a better kill. Anyone from that group of three. I think to start with the idea of what would make the most confusion. They did that on the first murder as well. They said exactly the same thing. What would be the most confusing? What would be the thing that would make them run around like ants? There's a lot of animal imagery in the Hungarian Traitors, including tiny bunnies can jump high too. When people are saying, well, Lutza can't possibly be a traitor, she's just a child. And somebody says, tiny bunnies can jump high too.
Oh, I love that. Look, I agree that they need to be targeting threats here. And this is why I'm so impressed. One of the many reasons I'm so impressed with Arnico. I don't think that she, at this stage, has outed herself as a threat. She doesn't speak up at the round table. She's not been going around collecting votes at this point. I agree at this next murder, she makes the most sense. But I think at the Vanda vote, Sorby is out as the brains behind that operation. And I think she does such an amazing job of not letting on how much she knows and how intelligent she is.
Then murder Sorby.
Agreed. So we're now in episode 3. Arnico is rallying votes for Jolt and letting people know about the Zeta theory. Meanwhile, Zeta is trying to smear Arnico. And, there's some theories. Layla's like, oh, Arnico's all worked up about that single vote from Jolt because they're both traitors. That side of the house, no idea what's going on, Sarah.
None.
But Evelyn, lovely Evelyn, she loves Jolt. They're close in real life. So she goes running to him to tip him off. She's like, what were you doing last night, Jolt? When you voted, you didn't vote for Lutza. It made you look so suspicious. Why do you have to pee against the wind? Which I love, because at this stage,
game is very strong.
Jolt has already told us that today he needs to sniff around with the other hunting dogs and pee on everyone. Yes. So it's a very pee-themed episode. Mm-hmm. But during her conversation with Jolt, Evelyn can tell he's not telling her the truth. And this flips Evelyn from the Jolt Zeta side over to the Arnico side.
Yes. This is the problem when they know each other.
Absolutely. And
she
then
sat down fully on his side, totally innocent, and she stood up 180 degrees. She knew. She knew.
He doesn't seem to be very good at the one-to-one lies. Arnico gets him to slip up quite a few times.
Yes. And one thing I just wanted to say in terms of production is some of these episodes are quite long. The shortest is 57 minutes. That's no ads. And the longest is up to an hour and 16. What this gives us, and I made this note, is we get great car talk. We get more time to spend on things. The episodes don't seem long. They fly by. But I think the editors are really using that material in the car talk. We always love car talk. It's a feature of most seasons, but it seems to me I'm getting more car talk in this one, and therefore I understand all the sides of the house and all the factions and all the who thinks who is what and who has to hide because somebody else is in the car than I ever have. This is a great season for car talk, if you like car talk.
I love car talk. I know how important the cars are. I love that they spell it out in this season too. Anako's like, look, the car conversations are the most important because it's the only place you can have a private conversation and everyone can't see you having the private conversation. So I know when I played, I was so deliberate about which car I got into. And that was really, really crucial to the game. We also see Jolt as well talk about the strategic importance of the trials, which I don't think we often talk about. Podcasters will say, well, the value of the missions is for the players to mentally decompress. No, not just that. Jolt also says, this is a place where the adrenaline is pumping. We are all working together as a team. And this is an opportunity for me, while people are kind of vulnerable in that adrenaline-fueled state, for me to really form tight bonds with them so that I can use those bonds later. And to Jolt's credit, there are people who will never vote for Jolt.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think certainly later seasons that we're seeing, the seasons of now, even in 3 years, the game has moved on, or 2 years, the game has moved on. We are now seeing the trials, as they're called here, the missions, holding strategic weight. You can't skip them anymore because things happen. Things happen that need to be attended to. And it's not just about picking a traitor. It's not just about, like in the early seasons, oh, they didn't help very much, so they're a traitor. It's like, no, that's completely false because it's the same money for everyone. But I think that was so well spelled out by Jolt that it's about recruiting allies can be made as well.
It's really fantastic. This mission or trial we get here ends up being quite important. This is one where in the process, Anako gives answers in a touchy subject game that reveals that she perhaps doesn't love Orshi, which really upsets Orshi. Now, up to this point, Orshi has kind of been with the Anako side and certainly involved in those conversations. This firmly moves Orshi to the other side of the house with Zita and Jolt. And post-mission, the Anako side has shifted to Zita. I think they think that getting Zita is going to be easier than Jolt just because of the loyalty he commands. And the Zita Jolt side of the house, as ring-led by icon Tomasz, they're going for Sorby. But it leaks back to Zita. It leaks back to Zita that a whole crew of 8 are coming for her, and Zita confronts the Alliance, and Tomasz says to us, without Zita, I have no authority in this house. I am reliant on her for people to care about what I have to say, so I want to keep her around. This is also where there's all sorts of little things that happen in this episode that play out later on. We get this fallout between Eva and Tomasz. Do you really understand what this argument was about, Sarah?
I still have no idea 3 episodes later.
They have a fight on the sofa. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but it basically ends up with Tomasz hating Eva's guts.
Hating her.
Like loathing her, and her thinking he's a traitor.
The only way I could think about it was she reminds him of someone in his life, or there's something that she said, because Hungarian is not very good. We don't get intonation. It may be a class thing. She may have spoken down to him without realizing it. She may have been imperious, or it might have been something that she really did say, because she doesn't seem to dislike him.
No.
She says it's one-sided, but he loathes her. So I feel like, and I don't like to use the word triggered, but I think she set up a resonance in him that he can't get over. And that's going to be part of his self-eviction, self-banishment that we're going to see.
This just becomes more and more toxic as the episodes go on until he leaves.
Yes, he calls it toxic as well.
It's very toxic. And
It's
I
saved
should
them
have
both from murder, though. It
It
saves them both
does.
from murder because the conclave says, well, don't get rid of them because they're a fantastic distraction. But also the innocents are saying, your relationship is a distraction to us. Stop it.
They notice it's a distraction. These aren't foolish faithful here. Lutzer, redhead Lutzer, not Traitor Lutzer, the original Lutzer who was told to leave by Attila, she rejoins the game. And we have one of the most exciting roundtables I've ever seen here. So this is the end of episode 3 and then the start of episode 4. Zeta calls out Sorby, and says it's really weird how, you yesterday were speaking out against herd mentality and today you're trying to rally it. Zeta gets personal with Evelyn and Aniko says, wait, stop. And she goes full me. She clocks Jolt. She clocks Zeta, the 2 last traitors in the game. She spells out all the evidence. It is incredible. Or she is giving Hannah, I thought, in this moment, because she just doesn't like Aniko and so doesn't want to listen to a word of it. And Tamash is just jumping in to say all the reasons he doesn't like Eva.
Yes. Like, no one wants to know. We're doing something else. But I love it when Aniko lays out her first piece of evidence and then Jolt says, oh, is that all you've got? And she says, no, and then continues with the rest of the evidence. It's brilliant.
She's amazing. She's so good.
Oh,
and even though there are all of these kind of cray-crays over the other side of the house where Tomash is like, well, you're just basic, Eva. Or she's like, well, I just hate you, Aniko. It doesn't matter because she's surrounded by other sensible people who will vote with her. And in what is a deadlock vote, right? Like, between Sorby and Zeta, okay? It is tied with Adam, who we will get to, being the decider. Oh my God, Adam!
His ass in the dark with both hands. Sorry, Adam, love you, but really. Later, he's going to say, in episode 6, he's going to say, just give me a task and I'll do it. And they do. And then he very seriously goes about doing his task. But before we get to Adam's decision, I wrote down, why is Lutzer, redhead Lutzer, why is she allowed to vote?
So
they can't vote for her and she can be murdered, but also she's allowed to vote. And I was surely hold her back and then she could have the deciding vote if it was a tie.
This was fascinating. So Lutzer has joined the game only hours before. Jolt immediately grabs her once they get back to the castle, pulls her under his wing, and brings her along to all the conversations he's having. Now, if Lutzer had not voted at this round table, it would have been a tie. And I don't know how things would have gone on the revote, but because of her, and because of dummy dum Aram, who again, as you said, couldn't find his ass in the dark.
With both hands.
With both hands, with one vote, Sorby goes here over Zeta. It is wild.
Who did you think was going?
I really hoped Zeta was going here. I thought they were going to get them back to back. What did you think?
I did too, but when Lutzer voted for Sabi, that's what sort of cued me into the fact that he would go. I was just astonished because, look, the production knows how many people are going to be at that round table, absent any quits. They're bringing Lutzer back into the game. She's not allowed to be voted for at banishment, although she is allowed to be murdered, which I thought was a bit mean. But, these are early. You got to remember it's 2023. The evolution of this game is exponential because it's all the seasons across all the franchises that are informing the new seasons, not just the seasons within each franchise. But knowing that the numbers are uneven, they could have held her back for a tie. Make it a tie and then go to Lutzer. All right, it's up to you. And this puts enormous pressure on her. But it's also called the Traitors.
Yeah.
Murder in the Castle. So, yes, put her under that pressure. You've had 3 hours to get to know these people. Lutzer, you have the deciding vote. And I think it would have been more exciting, but that's just me thinking on production side.
I completely agree with you, and that is now what they do. You come into the house late or partway through, you don't vote. But that's not how it played out, and in fairness, It wasn't game-breaking. We still get things juicy.
Oh, yeah.
Zeta goes full Danielle Reyes after eking through by one vote. She's crying, hyperventilating, and shaking at the round table while people comfort her. And I thought she was going full Danielle Reyes. The house is incredibly divided at this point, but we get up to the conclave, Sarah, and Zeta informs Jolt she's quitting.
Yes. And what she doesn't realise, because she hasn't had enough seasons to watch, is when you get the second most number of votes, and it's a lot of votes, there's a very weird thing that happens, which is when you are implicitly cleared of being a traitor. Now, I don't think it wouldn't have worked under Arnako's watch, but we see this in other seasons in other franchises, that when it's a very close vote, and somebody goes, whether they're a traitor or not, somehow, weirdly, the person with the second most number of votes is cleared. And as I've talked to people who have played the traitors, they all say, yes, that does happen and we don't know why. Because logically, it doesn't mean they're not a traitor, but they are somehow cleared, at least for a round.
Completely. She's just emotionally spent at this point.
And I don't think, and they were so strongly against her, I don't think that implicit clearance would have actually worked in this one. Nonetheless.
In another season, yes, but under our Queen Arnako's watch, no traitor is safe.
No way.
So she quits, and now we have our best friend Attila comes and tells Jolt, okay, well, we can't have one traitor, so you've got to blackmail. So Jolt chooses to blackmail Evelyn, who is his friend. We saw she's the one who came and gave him the tip-off, but she's also just endured a very long, very intense personal attack from Zeta at this round table, where Zeta clearly feels like Evelyn was a friend with her in real life and is betrayed. And so Evelyn gets up to the conclave, sobbing, tells Jolt she chooses to die. She can't do it. The drama. So just keep this in mind, people who didn't watch. A traitor has nearly gone out, stayed in by one vote, comes up to Traitor's Tower, quits. The last remaining traitor blackmails. She tells him to his face, no, I can't handle this anymore, leaves the game. And so poor Jolt is wringing his hands, has to blackmail again. Bence accepts, so this is where Ben Sir comes up, and then they get the chance to murder, which is wild at this point. And they choose Fruitsy, who we haven't mentioned because she doesn't really do anything.
She's charming. She's the hat girl.
Hat girl Fruitsy. We get down to breakfast the next day, and 3 people, well, 4 people if we include poor old Sobby, who's gone. But in the night, Zeta has quit, and then Fruitsy and Evelyn are gone. No explanation.
Brilliant.
It was so good.
And Queen Arnako and Attila says, I will leave it to you to discover why it is so, as he holds the 4 portraits in his hands. And Arnako says, bet. 2 minutes later, she's got it. Fantastic.
Insane. She goes up to Jolt.
Because it only works if Zeta is a traitor.
Literally. She goes to Jolt and she says, here's my theory. Arnako is a traitor, so the traitor's forced to recruit.
Zeta's a traitor?
Oh, sorry. Arnako goes to Jolt. She says, here's my theory. Zeta was a traitor. Zeta quits. The other traitor's forced to blackmail. First person rejects it. They die. Second person accepts it. They murder someone. And Jolt goes, oh, yes, excellent theory. I guess that makes sense. And so Arnako goes, oh, so you agree that Zeta was a traitor then? No. Zeta wasn't a traitor. Well, my theory is completely impossible if Zeta, it only works if Zeta's a traitor. Yes, I said she was a traitor.
Jolt. I think he's rocked by, why he chose the little girl who's going to come up blondly crying. I wondered actually if she was waiting to see who the traitor was before she accepted or rejected, or whether for the drama they want them to accept or reject face to face. Because, I would always say yes anyway, no matter who the traitor was. But I can imagine the blackmail, and if you were a different person, you would think, I want to see who it is before I decide. Is it someone I can genuinely work with, or is it someone who has been working against me and therefore is going to use me and throw me under the horse's hoof.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Why
Evelyn
did he
had
choose
such...
her? Charlotte
Because they're
chose
close.
the wrong person.
He chose someone close and she is intelligent. But I think he looked at that and overlooked the fact that she was incredibly emotionally vulnerable in that moment.
Yeah,
And
given
the
Zeta
toll...
just showed him emotional vulnerability at Mark 10, perhaps he can't recognise it.
Ben Sir now it also immediately tells us, waste of space, I'm here to get rid of Jolt. These
Yes.
OG traders don't know what's up. I think that this, and this is a bit of getting into the meta that we'll discuss in our third episode, this all proves that the best strategy as a traitor is to recruit your best friend. Like, I really think if Jolt had brought in Ferry, even though Ferry numbnuts possibly knows even less that's going on than Adam, at least Ferry never turns on Jolt.
Exactly. And he might even relish
yes.
being a traitor. Ferry, let us know. Send us a message. Would you have liked to have been a traitor?
The house is super divided. They're barely even speaking to each other. The mission does a lot to kind of bring them together, but it's still quite divided. The alliances are very split. So on Jolt's side, we've got serial killer Henry, Argy, who's great but barely worth mentioning. We've got Icon
Argy,
Tamash.
she's great, but she hasn't been instrumental. Sorry, Argy, we like you, but
yeah, barely there. Icon Tamash, Toxic Fairy, We Love You, Mother Orshi, Dr. Layla, and Jolt. He thinks he has Adam, but Adam doesn't know what he's doing, so no one can really rely on that. Jolt is also incorrect in thinking he has Ben Sir. I mean, more on Adam, still doesn't even think Zeta was a traitor, so why you would rely on him for anything, I don't know. But we go into the round table, and immediately Ben Sir opens up on Jolt. With Orshi flipping, it ends up being a pretty clear vote for Jolt. There's still a few on Mohar from the loyal Jolt numbers, but Ben Sir comes out of this looking like a traitor hunter.
yes, it did all sorts of things at once. It establishes, they thought he was an innocent. It now establishes him as a traitor hunter, innocent. He spoke very well at the round table. It was totally unexpected. Jolt had no idea it was coming. And for Ben Sir, it clears the way, as he says, of these traitors who were bad traitors, and now let me very carefully select who will be with me as a teammate. And I think certainly we are halfway through, but it's still kind of too early to recruit someone to sacrifice. And I think also the people who are recruited to be sacrificed know they are. So he does make a good pick. Now, again, on production side, I love the way some of these episodes are organised. Now, partly I suspect it's because they lost too many people when they didn't expect it. But we are now starting an episode with the round table. So we get round table, banishment, conclave, breakfast, trial, and then scramble before the round table. I love it. And then we're going to get the round table in the beginning of the next episode. I think it's a fantastic structure.
I love it. I love that they aren't sticking to, we have to do it in the same formulaic way every time. They work. I mean, honestly, if I didn't have the whole season to binge, if we were doing this in weekly drops, Sarah, I might lose my mind, but it's so perfect for a binge.
I lose my mind less than what US3 did, which is drop us in the middle of a vote.
Yeah, that's incredibly annoying.
Just don't do that.
Oh, incredible. So Arnico is a bit annoyed at this vote, though, because you brought this up before. Arnico completely rightly suggests, at this stage, we know someone's been recruited, and we know Jolt is a traitor. We need to keep in Jolt, because we know he's a traitor, and he will lead us to the other one. We have one known entity. If we lose Jolt, we are headless chooks. We don't know where to look. It makes it much harder for us to gather evidence. So does she want to put the votes on Layla or something? She's looking at somebody else here.
She's been looking at Layla. She's been mentioning Layla for a little while now.
But, with all the heat...
Dr. Layla is a complete loyalist to Jolt. So on one hand, you could say, well, yes, they might be a traitor. But on the other hand, you might say the traitors shouldn't meet. Now, interesting, jumping ahead, but Bensa is going to choose Danny, and they very cleverly meet just enough in public. They neither completely avoid each other, nor do they go away in corners by themselves, but they meet very naturally throughout the day. And when we get their next conclave, they are going to congratulate themselves for having done so. And we go, okay, yes, you can congratulate yourself for that. So Dr. Layla's not a bad pick if you are looking for, well, she knows she's looking for a recruit. She's so confident in her own thoughts, and she's correct, and she always has been. So she's looking for a recruit, and Dr. Layla is a fantastic first idea as a recruit.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it at all. It is so much easier. I can speak from experience. So much easier to find the other traitors once you know who one is. If they're still in the game, even better. Like, I could not have clocked Blake without Sam and knowing Sam already. So having that one messy traitor who's there, like, accidentally breadcrumbing you all of these other pieces is a huge advantage, which is why it was so good on Ben Sur to recognize this guy is a messy traitor. He's not good for my game. I need to axe him and bring in somebody who's going to be much better to work with. So great calls by both of them. What I got the impression was, so Mohar, i.e. is he 36, is he 22, quite into his hair, a lot of votes were being rallied against him, and he's core to the Arnico contingent. So I believe Arnico just gets on board with the Jolt vote here to save Mohar.
Yeah, once Spencer gives his incredible opening arguments at the trial of Jolt, you can't. She had to go. See, she's smart. She wanted one thing, but her team wanted something else. So she said, "All right, I'll go with the team."
She's so amazing. So everyone sort of gets
we love
things
her so much,
except for Adam, who votes for Lutzer because he actually genuinely thinks it's Lutzer.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone's
Lutzer,
screaming.
but a different Lutzer.
A different Lutzer, babe. She's already gone. That's already done. So Ben Sur's looking like a traitor hunter. Annika is annoyed because now they're starting from scratch. And we have the two sides, because there's still very much two sides, trying to think who would Jolt recruit. So Icon Tamash and Dr. Layla side, they think he would recruit somebody who would be easily controlled so that he could keep control. Like, for example, Ferry, which was my suggestion. But the Arnico side, always genius, think Jolt would recruit someone that no one knew in real life, so that you would be less likely to notice a behavior change, i.e. recruit a good traitor. Or she actually does suggest Ben Sur, but the others think Adam or Lutzer. Actually, they recruited Ben Sur, and Ben Sur is going to blackmail in Dani. What do you think of Dani?
One of the problems is that he and Adam are very similar looking. So I had to keep trying to remember which was which. And I'd go, okay, so Dani's got the narrow square face, and then Adam would come on. But the dumb told me who was who. Sorry, Adam. You're probably absolutely, I'm sure you're lovely, but you do not know what you're doing in this game. So first of all, I didn't know which was which.
Literally, like, Adam is Dani. They were twins separated at birth, but Adam went to private school. That's the only way to tell them apart.
Absolutely. So I would like Dani to wear a kerchief, like a red silk kerchief or something, to let me know which he is. Having said that, it's hard to know what did I think of Dani coming up to this, because I might have been thinking it about Adam or anyway. But I think it's a great choice. I think picking another man is great because it's like with like. And so if the innocent go, well, a man must be a traitor, there are two men. So if he chooses a woman, he loses that sort of shield. If they decide that Jolt would have chosen a man, you're reducing your chances of being picked. I liked that Dani in the first conclave, when he came to say, yes, I will be a traitor with you, immediately he's not driving the conversation over the top of Benson, but they are having a very strong discussion about who to murder. And discussion, not argument, but they're both in there. They're both listening to each other. They're going through the names. They're not just picking a name at random. They're saying, okay, let's go through everybody. And then when we see them meet again in episode 6 at the conclave, they say, yes, well done, we met just enough during the day. And I think Dany is a superb choice, and I can see them going very far. They can't both win because two traitors are never going to win. But I think he's a very good choice. I will just say that Ferry hears that Tomash has said his name, and he says, F his auntie.
F his auntie! F his auntie! It is...
Auntie. He said my name. F his auntie.
It's
very
so
particular.
much.
Very is. Very, very particular.
It's so much.
So you either
yeah.
flush people down the toilet or you F their aunties.
Literally. So yeah, they're great. They both understand the assignment, Dany and Ben Sir.
Yes.
I do think maybe you need to start thinking about Aniko. That said, I would argue that Ben Sir just came out as the traitor hunter. So if you murder the other traitor hunter and Ben Sir is still miraculously here 3 episodes from now, questions are going to be asked. So again, Aniko has done such an amazing job of insulating herself. They decide to frame Tamash by killing his best friend's serial killer, Henry, because Jolt already did this with Andras Schwabi, and they're playing to this preconceived culture that already exists, an idea that's already happened within the season. This is also great because Eva and Tamash already hate each other and are already fighting, and Eva just leaps at this opportunity. The next kind of whole episode up until the vote out, over into episode 6 as well, is just everyone piling on Tamash, and Tamash talking about how Eva is dumb and Eva is basic and blah, 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 blah.
And he has people at home who love him, and he knows who he is.
He does. He's amazing.
Yes.
Thomas he's sulking a bit by the next day because, you know, everyone hates him. There is a game for a shield, and they clock the shield strategy. However, it immediately becomes irrelevant because there's then a death row twist.
That was very weird. The production would introduce the shield for the murdering night where they're going to have a death row. Now, if they put, so let's not bury the lead, Benser gets the shield, but if someone had a shield and was put on death row, are they shielded from murder?
I think
does it carry forward to say Aniko had it? She wasn't in the shield group, but she is one of the people on death row. Say she had it, and we get to the next murdering night and they choose her. Does she turn up in the morning? Because otherwise the shield was completely pointless.
Agreed. I think that if you had the shield, my personal opinion, that you couldn't be put on death row. I mean, it looks to me, Ben Sir tells us that the shield is now pointless because of the death row twist.
And because he's the one with it? Yes.
But it's because he can say that because he has the shield.
Yeah, okay.
I think that if Aniko had the shield, then the next day there would only be 2, not 3 people on death row.
There would be 2 announced. Okay, so it's not that you would be on death row, but then shielded from your murder. You wouldn't even be on death row. Yeah, that makes sense. I
think that makes the most sense if you ask me.
Yes.
But just before we get there, we do have this Tamash round table, and he's like, look, how am I a traitor, everyone? I'm the only one left without any allies. I'm emotionally weak. I talk too much, and I haven't been in such...
left.
He's the last diversity hire, and he's about to go, and he hasn't been in such a toxic environment since high school. But people don't like that he's fighting with Eva, and they say one of you's got to go. They don't like that Tomash has said he's not having a good time and he kind of wants to go home. He's not really fighting to stay. While Aniko says this is cooked and I don't like that everyone is doing this, or she says something similar, he goes out almost unanimously, gives us that amazing confessional, and on the way out, Sarah gives a parting gift. He said, lists a whole bunch of people, including Ben Sir and Dany, and says, you guys are playing honestly and fairly in a great game, but Layla and Eva, you're toxic, you're traitors, and I hope everyone's looking at you.
Brilliant. Because what would he know? But again, the parting words of a banished innocent in the culture of the game, as I understand it, hold weight, even though they have they know no more than they did before. But he names both of them. It's brilliant.
I mean, see Traitors Quebec and their new journal twist. It matters. We respect the dead. So, yes, here's where we get this death row twist. And so, on death row, they choose Arnico because she's obviously a big strategic threat and she's intelligent. They choose gay icon Andre because he's close with Eva and they want to keep framing Eva. And they choose Orshi because they think she'll have a mental breakdown and lean on Ben Shur for support. So this says to me that they're planning on murdering Arnico here, or Andre.
I think Arnico, I think that, Andre puts it perfectly when he hits his name. Like, why me? Exactly.
Andre is so Final Fire of Truth coded. Like, I can see Andre
extraordinary.
accidentally winning this game. He is your very typical faithful.
Absolutely. And I think they picked Orshi just to have her go into a spiral. I have more respect for Orshi. I think she's going to handle this really well, because I think sometimes for people who can get emotional and overreact, when it's something that is implied or something that's not quite true or something that they're perceiving and feeling but it's not really there, they go nuts into a spiral. When it's actual danger that you know about, in other words, you are on death row, maybe she can be calm.
Yes.
I love Orshi. In case I haven't made it clear, I love Orshi.
Arnico is not calm about this because Mohar and Ferry are really aggressively pushing this idea that the traitors can put themselves on death row, and they're doing this to clear themselves. So let's just assume one of the three is a traitor.
Yeah.
Again,
not a
genius
bad idea.
that on Hungary's first season, the traitors didn't fall into the trap of doing this, which they have on every other one.
Yes.
Snaps for Hungary. And they can kind of just see, Ferry takes this a step further. He says, as a military guy, I can move forward with 9 troops out of 12. If 3 are wounded, I can't carry them all, so let the most wounded die. He wants to banish one of the 3, then he wants them to be a traitor or whatever, then he wants another one of the 3 murdered, and then he's going to banish the other third person as well. He wants all 3 that are named out of the game.
Cruel but fair, because if you go on the idea that one of them is a traitor, you are compelling, if you are right, you are compelling them to show their hand. Because if you banish one and they're innocent, and then the second one dies, then the third one is not a bad idea as a traitor, because they're not going to kill the traitor of the 3, because a traitor can't kill a traitor. As we know, Annabel.
As we know.
As we know, to our cost.
Ko is understandably pissed at Mohar that after she's pulled off this move to save him a couple of round tables ago, he's now one of the ones pushing that she's potentially a traitor. Or she's more chill. She's coming at Eva.
It's not a bad shout. I certainly completely support banishing one of the 3. Sam talked about in his season the idea that when there's a shield group, banish one of them.
Yes.
Because that increases you, the non-shielded group, it now increases your chances of not being murdered. Because if you banish one of the non-shield group and you're in the non-shield group, your chances of being murdered now just got higher. So,
I agree. In Sam's context, that makes sense. In this one, banishing one of those 3 doesn't reduce the likelihood of you getting murdered, though. It increases the likelihood of one of them.
It gives you information.
Yeah. I ride so hard for my girl. I just don't want Arnico going.
If she is murdered or banished, I will riot.
I will be so mad.
You will hear me coming down the Hume Highway and exploding on your doorstep.
Yeah, I just don't see how else it can work out. Because the whole point of putting Orshi there is to make her closer to Ben Sur. You'd be stupid to murder Andre. So the only scenario would be they then decide to recruit when they don't have to instead of doing a murder. And why would they do that? I don't know. So everyone candles out for Queen Arnico.
Well, now, hold on. If, for example, Danny or Benza are banished at the round table, then there must perforce be a blackmail.
Yeah.
And
but then there has to be a murder too.
Someone from the death row group and then one of the others gets murdered. That could save Arulok. Depending on who but I can't see Benza or Danny. There's no heat on either of them. And they were given a benediction by Tamash. So, yeah. I can't see how it's not Arulok, and I don't want it to be.
It's not looking good for the Queen, but candles out, because when I tell you there has never been a greater faithful on the planet. Sure, I'm only into my first non-Quebec, non-English speaking season, but this is held up in the community as one of the best seasons of all time, Sarah. Yes. It is delivered so far. I can't wait to watch the next 6 episodes with you.
And your avatar has moved on one further episode than you did.
You have?
No, your avatar.
Oh, yes. Arulok, yes.
How strange to think. Oh, no, you wouldn't have been. I was going to say you would have been playing at the same time, but you wouldn't. She, in fact, already played. Yeah.
No, but she is my hero. I'm so brilliant. Obsessed with her. The whole world needs to know how amazing this woman is. So scream it from the rooftops.
We need a translator.
Yes.
That's how Sam and I had Maxence from Les Traitors Quebec the first season, and I approached him and would he like to come on, and he said yes, but his English wasn't very good. Let me tell you, it was very good, but I could see him getting tired after about 40 minutes. But I said to him, if we have a translator there for you, how would you feel? And he said he would feel very comfortable, and he didn't need him at all. At one point he said, what's the word conclave? And we went, yes, it's conclave. Oh, how we laughed Frenchly. But let me put my mind to it. Let me look in my circle. I have translators in my circle, but I don't know if they speak Hungarian. What a beautiful sounding language it is.
It is absolutely stunning. Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a binge, but I loved every second of it. What have you got going on, and where can the people find you?
Well, you can find me every week on Crime Scene, that's SEEN, reviewing true crime properties. We'll tell you all about it, whether you should watch them or not. Many people don't watch them at all and just listen to us because we are hilarious. You can find us at Crime Scene Pod on all social media and crimescenepod.com to subscribe. How about you, Annabel? What have you got going on?
Well, we are trying to, get better at here over on Babes on the Brink. So follow us on social media, Babes on the Brink. We're also covering Traitors Quebec Season 2 that is airing at the moment. We now have a YouTube. We have a YouTube, Babes on the Brink, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about the episodes as well. And we can now read our Spotify comments and reviews. Still working on Apple Podcasts, but we'd love it if you left us a rating and review. Let us know what you think about the seasons. This project where we're watching old international seasons, I would love to know whether or not this is something that you're enjoying listening to. Should we go beyond Hungary and do the others? Because if no one cares, I'll just binge them in my own time and not podcast about it. But
can I put my hand up for the original? Can we do the original?
Yes.
Can we do the first?
We can.
Can we do the season of my people, the Scandinavians?
Absolutely. We can do the Scandies together. But anyway, let us know your thoughts and feedback and which other seasons we should prioritize. Love you all. Bye.